All right, good morning, Commissioners and Housing Authority Board of Directors. Over to you, Director Harrington.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, December 6th, 2022 Washington County Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting. Clerk Moss, announcements, please.
Thank you, Director Harrington. Washington County is now meeting as the Housing Authority Board of Directors in this regular session, December 6th, 2022. Director Savara.
Present.
Director Roper.
Here.
Director Rogers.
Here.
Director Treese.
Here.
Director Fye.
Present.
Director Willie.
Here.
Director Harrington.
Here. Thank you. First item on the agenda is public comment. Clerk Moss, are there any members of the community who wish to speak with the Housing Authority Board of Directors for up to 2 minutes?
I did not see anyone sign up in the back room. Would any members in our attendance wish to provide public comment for up to 2 minutes of the board? Give you just a moment if anyone wants to come forward. Let me get this. First up, we have Patty Steep. Patty?
Oh, just come right on up to the table where we have microphones so that we, the community here in the room with us and online with us, have the opportunity of hearing you.
Hello and good morning. I am Patty Steep, and this is my colleague Annie.
Hi.
I am Washington County's outreach worker for Oxford Inc., and I just wanted to introduce myself. We're new employees, and we represent Oxford House. There's over 22 Oxford houses in Washington County. And how many in Clackamas?
There's about 40 in Clackamas
Yes,
County.
and we just wanted to, I don't know, bring Oxford House to whatever community partners we can be in and sit in on this meeting. So, yeah.
Could you tell us real briefly what the mission of Oxford House is?
Yeah, Oxford House is to bring people who are justice involved, mental illness, everybody who is in recovery home and give them a safe place to live. What brings us different than any other recovery housing is there's no managers in Oxford House, and we don't give you a time limit. You can stay there as long as you can and as long as you want. And the resources that Oxford House provides for you is, it's a group setting, so it's democratically ran, and we help you get your license back. We go to school. I mean, me personally, I've come from a long line of institutionalized. I've been in jails and prisons, and it has helped me get my life back on track and buy cars, get a good credit score, back to college and things like that. So. Most of our housing right now, we're looking to open up more housing because the weather is very cold and we want to bring those addicts home. So, yep. Do you want to add anything?
Would you like to add anything?
No? Okay,
Yeah.
right? And we
Well,
just appreciate it.
Yeah.
So does Clerk Moss have your name and contact information so that if members of our staff wish to connect with
totally.
you, they're able to do that?
I will drop off my card.
Yes.
Right,
That'd be
thank you, guys.
Terrific. Thank you, and thank you for coming and introducing yourselves to us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Would any members of your online attendees wish to provide comment for up to 2 minutes at this time? I'll give you just a minute to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing any hands, Madam Director.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Next, we have our consent agenda, and today's consent agenda consists of one item, that is approval of the minutes for our November 1st, 2022 meeting. What are the wishes of the board?
Motion to approve them.
Second.
We have a motion from Director Savaro, a second from Director Roper. All those in favor of adopting today's minutes, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 7-0. Next, we'll move on to our second public comment period of the meeting. Clerk Moss.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. Would any members in our online attendees in our room in the auditorium wish to provide public comment for up to 5 minutes? Not see anyone raise their hand or come forward. Would any members in our online attendees wish to provide comment for up to 5 minutes on any item related to the Housing Authority Board of Directors? Give you just a moment to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing any hands, Madam Director, and I believe you had a special presentation you wanted to do.
Yes, indeed. So today is a special day, and I would like to call up a friend of our community, Ms. Sheila Greenlaw-Fink. And feel free, Director Comey Calavar, to come up as well in case you would like to make some comments. So today is a special day. I would like us to celebrate someone in the form of Sheila Greenlaw-Fink as a very special someone to us here in our community. Many of us on this board and across our agency have known Sheila for many years. But for those of you who may not, I will try and provide just a brief summary of Sheila's story. So Sheila was born and raised here in Oregon, in Southern Oregon, where she learned the value of service early in her life. Some would call her a born organizer. She participated in 4-H, church volunteering, and political campaigns. And early in her career years, she spent time in Washington, D.C., where she worked for the National Council of State Housing Agencies, as well as at the American Public Power Association. Reminds me of your experience in the power industry. So when Sheila returned to Oregon, she got right to work, serving the homeless community here in Washington County in our state, founding and then serving as the executive director of Community Partners for Affordable Housing, where she worked for over 2 decades. CEPA's mission is to provide affordable housing that is equitable and just. Through her leadership across 2 decades, she's made tremendous positive impact for our vulnerable populations by bringing to fruition numerous sustainable projects and programs. And I would urge you to check CEPA out at cpahoregon.org. Her passion and commitment to our community continued, and as she stepped down as the director of the Community Partners for Affordable Housing in 2015, she took the reins of the Community Housing Fund. Now, Community Housing Fund has provided loan products to spur the development of equitable and affordable housing. For me, I know it well as early gap funding, so we can get these affordable housing projects going and into the pipeline. Because affordable housing, especially the financing, is very complicated. A little bit here, a little bit there, effectuating income tax credit, so on and so forth. So that work has been really helpful for allowing us to reach our goals. At the same time of leading the Community Housing Fund, she also has contributed her limited time to our Washington County Housing Advisory Committee. On behalf of our board, I want to express how appreciative we are of the insight and expertise you have brought to our various committees to help advise our Housing Board of Directors, but also to the wider community, such as at the regional level, so that we were successful as a community in securing through the voters additional resources to build permanent affordable housing right here in each and every community. So on behalf of the, wider Washington County community, we have a lot to be grateful for. And as we look forward towards a new year of 2023, we have quite a transition before us because Sheila is retiring from this formal work at the end of March. We do wish you our heartfelt best as you enter a well-deserved new chapter of life. And in recognition of our thanks, We would like to provide for you a plaque, and I'm not sure, oh, there we go. So we'll have the opportunity for a picture for all of us with Sheila as well. But before we do that, I want to turn the floor over to every member of the Housing Board as well as to our director. And also, Sheila, do feel free to make some remarks as well. Who would like to go first?
I would like to go first. And I have had the opportunity to know Sheila professionally and as a friend for the last 10 years. And I first got to work with Sheila at Westside Economic Alliance, which might seem a little odd, but this is part of what makes Sheila such a special person in that she took she worked hard with me to educate the private sector around what issues face the housing community and attended so many of our meetings and was a voice in so many different ways. And I appreciated her collaborative approach. I appreciated her depth of knowledge is astronomical, but I also appreciated her heart. And I want to say thank you to Sheila. I'm happy you're retiring. I'm sad for me, but my very best to you.
Any other directors?
Well, Sheila, I've known you a long time, and one of the things I've always greatly admired you is that you were a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of the holistic approach that we had to have in regard to a vibrant, healthy community. And I think many of us back some years ago said, well, why do we need to do that? We, don't have that big a population, and housing wasn't at the top of our radar. Well, things have certainly changed. It is now at the top of our radar. In fact, it's probably above the radar. And you were an early leader, an early implementer, and there's something to be said about those who see a vision and make that vision come true, and who educate others and bring them along, and so that they can say, I knew Sheila when she was there by herself, and you're not by yourself anymore. Congratulations on your retirement. I don't know why young people like you think that you have to run off, but that's, I guess that's up to you. Go fishing or whatever you're going to do.
Well, go right ahead, Director Roper, please.
Hey, Sheila, we don't know each other very well, but I've been to the HAC meetings and I've heard you speak. Your passion and your insight is so vast. And I mean, you always came at it with different angles, different questions, and you made us think when I did get to go to those meetings. It was really interesting just to watch you work and just contemplate and kind of quite make other people stop and think and question outside of the box, because you're always looking for the next step, the next game. So it's gonna be really sad day because we're losing you, but like I hope nobody's gonna be able to fill your shoes. But I wish you the best, and I'm just stay vibrant and do you.
I also admire and appreciate how you have helped nurture learnings in others, especially in our younger leaders, to encourage them in their contributions to our community. So thank you for being a steward of advancing our working together for the betterment of our community. So colleagues,
I was going to say, congratulations, Sheila, for retiring. And if you're looking for volunteer work, District 1 will be happy to have you. We have tons of work, or the county. So I just wanted to say congratulations and good luck with your retirement. I agree with Commissioner Rogers. You look too young to be retiring, but that's also something to celebrate.
Director Calavar, are there any remarks you'd like to make?
Yes, Madam Chair. A lot has already been said. The word that comes to my mind for Sheila is advocacy. She has been an advocate when housing was not popular, and she still continues. We are pleased to have her working with us. She served on many committees, especially on evaluation committees. When we have housing proposals, very thick packets, very technical information, and Sheila is the one who do her homework and read everything and ask the difficult questions. So we'll be missing her, but I'm sure we'll find her when we need her, even in retirement.
Wonderful.
Congratulations, Sheila.
Well, colleagues, would you join me down on the floor in presenting this plaque? Good. So while we're assembling, this is a plaque that says Special Recognition, Sheila Greenlaw Fink, for nearly 3 decades of affordable housing advocacy and leadership in Washington County, Oregon. A salute to your tireless work as founding executive director of SEPA and your service with Community Housing Fund.
I just want to say thank you to all of you for taking the plunge and really stepping it up in housing. It is true, some things haven't changed since I moved back in '95. Roy Rogers was commissioner. He's still commissioner. I moved out of his district, but I had the opportunity to try to compel him on some issues like tax exemption, which have made a huge difference. So I know it is hard to think about change when you live in a place that is so great. But we do still have a lot of change to do. So thank you for the efforts. And I'll be volunteering already, as said, retiring to do care with family on the East Coast. So wouldn't have wanted to leave the fray so soon, but we'll still be around. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. Oh, would you like the box? Well, I appreciate Sheila Greenlaw Fink for joining us today so that we could recognize her service. We'll move on then to full Board of Directors announcements. And before I start, I want to highlight that the positions for service on the Board of Directors, it sounds like Director Roper let me know that she's coming to the end of her first 4-year term. I, for one, hope that she will reapply, but do know that the application period is open for that. It's been really important over the years for the Housing Authority to have our 2 community members serving on this committee to help us do the work with our staff of looking at additional programs, pursuing additional grants, and ensuring that the affordable housing portfolio that the Housing Authority is the steward of continues to offer good, healthy living conditions for members of our community. So, all that being said, the floor is yours, board members. Is there anything you wish to share with our community today? No? Go ahead.
I'll just say really quick, on my drive here, I've passed 2 different affordable housing developments that were in process, and I was just thinking about like the work this year, especially, I don't know, after several years of COVID and all of the just all the different responses that we've seen our community go through. It's just been really exciting to be a part of this work and be a part of this journey with you all. And yeah, just like being able to see like our team's work in action, you know, driving here. I live in Hillsborough and I didn't drive very far, you know, and saw 2 different complexes being developed. It's just really cool to see that that sort of translation, you know, from the hard work of the team at the Hawk, and just being able to see where we're going in the future through those additional investments from Metro and from the state, and just from all the work that folks are doing. So excited for, you know, finishing up a good year and looking forward to the year ahead.
Thank you, Director Savaro. I know we have our Board of Commissioners fourth quarter town hall tonight, and I know I'll be speaking to some accomplishments in affordable housing and homeless services. But also of interest, looking ahead, on Friday, January 20th, we have the annual board meeting with, help me get it right, is it the Homeless Advisory Committee or the Housing Advisory Committee, or is it Housing and Homeless Advisory Committee?
Housing and advisory.
Thank you. But that's always a good meeting as well, so terrific. Any other board announcements today? Well, seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn today's December 6, 2022 Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting?
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning today's meeting, please vote by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 7-0. We will see you next year. Thank you. And after a few minutes, we'll be switching over to the Washington County Board of Directors meeting. Thank you for joining us.
Alrighty, good morning, commissioners. Back and over to you, Chair Harrington, call this meeting to order.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, December 6, 2022 Washington County Board of Commissioners meeting. Clerk Moss, announcements, please.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. The Washington County Board of Commissioners, also meeting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services and all other county service districts, is now meeting this regular session, December 6, 2022. Commissioner Treese.
Present.
Commissioner Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Fye.
Present.
Vice Chair Willie.
Here.
Chair Harrington.
Here. Thank you. We have a full Board of Commissioners today in person. The next item on the agenda is public communication, the first public communication section of our meeting today. This is an opportunity for members of our community to come speak to us on any topic for up to 2 minutes. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone set up?
We do, Chair Harrington. We have Mr. Dale Feek. Dale?
Madam Chair Harrington and Commissioners, I'm Dale Feek, Chair of the Washington County Citizen Action Network. I sent you 3 separate emails, and then I want to summarize those quickly for you and the public. The first one was interview questions for DEQ Director candidates. Second was Tom Carr codification presentation at the work session. The third was DEQ Climate Protection Program. The first then is this is what I said. The following email that I sent to you with attachments is my attempt to influence the selection of the new DEQ director, and in essence, DEQ's climate action plan. And in particular, I'll ask you to please review the urgency that the former director of DEQ, Richard Whitman, writes about this. I said, see my attachment, climate change questions for DEQ director candidates. People can submit questions, but that's passed, and so you had the opportunity to do so if you wanted to, and I gave the information how to do that. Second one was Tom Carr's codification. And so I said, after re-listening to Tom Carr's presentation to you at the Washington County Board of Commissioners during the work session, I'm reacting the following way. As the former chair of the Forest Grove City Sustainability Commission, I and a few others of the commission asked the city recorder, the clerk, and other city staff to get certain rules and regulations passed by the city council. They could not quickly and easily find the resolutions, decisions made about the topic that we wanted information about. That was very frustrating and thwarted some of the efforts in proposing recommendations to the council. So I'm pleased that Tom Carr, the general counsel, is acting on that. My third, 17 seconds, third has to do with climate protection program reminder. County Chair, you said adaptation. Please note the first meeting is December the 7th, and then I make a statement then, the urgency of it. So please take a look at my emails that I sent to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feek. Would anyone else in the auditorium wish to provide comment for up to 2 minutes? Not seeing anyone raising hands. Would any members of our online virtual attendees wish to provide comment on any county-related topic for up to 2 minutes? Give you just a moment to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing any hands. Chair Harrington.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Next, we have our consent agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of 10 items. We have 6 items from Clean Water Services, 1 item from Health and Human Services, 1 item from Support Services, 1 item from Land Use and Transportation, and 1 item from Support Services related to the Cooperative Library Services. What are the wishes of the Commission?
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second to adopt today's consent agenda. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we'll move on to boards and commissions. Today, we have an action before us to appoint Craig McDonald to the Rainbow Lane Special Road District for a term effective January 1st of 2023 through December 31st, 2025. What are the wishes of the Commission?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of making this appointment, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we have 2 presentations today. The first one comes to us from the Washington County Auditor, John Hutzler, related to cybersecurity.
So, Madam Chair, at the request of Administrator Angie, she switched up the presentations and would like Matt Craigie and the economic one to do first.
To go first?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry about
certainly.
that, Judge.
Thank you. So we're going to switch then to a great presentation on our workforce development investments and outcomes here in our community. So we have our Economic Development Manager, Matt Craigie, who spearheads this work for us here at Washington County, working through partners. So he'll be introducing our guest speakers, and they'll be making a great presentation today amongst the 4 of them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chair Harrington. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Matt Craigie. I'm Washington County's Economic Development Manager. Great to be with you this morning. The purpose of today's presentation is to review current workforce development investments in Washington County. So with me today are 3 of our close partners in workforce development. Andrew McGough, the Executive Director of Work Systems, Inc., our local workforce investment board. Jonathan Colon, the Director of Centro de Prosperidad, the economic development arm of Centro Cultural. And Pam Hester, the Regional Director for Workforce Development at Portland Community College. Before I turn over to the presentation over to my partners, we just have a couple slides to help ground and orient us for this conversation. For the audience, I would like to start with a short reflection on what we mean by workforce development. Workforce development describes a system of strategies that focus on supporting people's ability to participate in the economy. Key outcomes, the way that we assess and define success, include skills development, career advancement, and job acquisition. Workforce development is complex and difficult work. As you will hear from our panelists, workforce development is centered on helping people acquire the skills and training necessary to access opportunity. Vulnerable communities, especially those in marginalized groups, such as recent immigrants and communities of color, face additional barriers. to career acquisition and advancement. This is why a strong workforce development ecosystem is reliant on strong relationships among a range of organizations, institutions, and private companies. The county also has a role to play in workforce development. We invest in and work closely with Work Systems, Inc., our area's workforce investment board, an organization that is charged with developing regional workforce strategies, coordinating workforce investments, and administration of programs and services. I would like to recognize and thank Commissioner Rogers for his role and work as a board member of WSI. With WSI, as Andrew will provide in more detail in his presentation, the county has several investments which WSI is able to leverage with other funding. These include a construction industry-focused grant, investments via the Supportive Housing Services bond measure, a community development block grant funds, and a grant through the Washington County Jail Services. Our role extends beyond these investments in a couple ways. We also convene partners around local workforce challenges, helping to assist with connections to local communities, organizations, and private companies. Thanks to your board, we also have been able to extend substantial investments into the local workforce development system by leveraging a portion of our American Rescue Plan Act dollars. Altogether, your board's investment of $2 million in ARPA funds will support important and needed work of 9 workforce organizations to help folks impacted by the pandemic. These organizations include those on your screen, which include Work Systems, Centro, Portland Community College, Northwest Regional Education Service District, Muslim Education Trust, Portland Youth Builders, IRCO, Immigrant Refugee Communities of Oregon, Urban League of Portland, and Working Theory Farm. These expansive investments will collectively help people across Washington County get the skills development, hands-on training, education, job exposure services across a wide variety of fields. Several of these programs also include wraparound services. In the new year, when we have more data about how these programs are progressing, I look forward to reporting back to your board about all of this great work. And with that, I would like to turn it to our panelists to hear more about their great work in workforce development here in Washington County. We'll hear first from Andrew, and then Jonathan, and then Pam, and then we've left some time afterwards to take any questions or comments from your board. Andrew, here.
Good morning, Chair Harrington, Commissioners. It's great to see everyone in person. It's been a long time, and it feels good to be out and about. So thank you so much for the invitation today. My name is Andrew McGough. I'm the Executive Director of Work Systems, which is the workforce board for Washington and Multnomah counties. As the workforce board, we're designated to receive certain pots of federal and state resources, essentially to improve the quality of the regional workforce. As Matt alluded to, we are not a direct service organization. Rather, we are a resource, policy, coordinating, and oversight board who seeks to support and sustain a collaborative approach to workforce development. To that end, a significant piece of our work relates to WorkSource Oregon, which is Oregon's approach to the public workforce system. And if you're looking on this map, the WorkSource centers are designated by those green dots. So in Washington County, we have 2 WorkSource centers, one on the Willow Creek campus of PCC, and look forward to hearing from Pam shortly, and one in Tigard, which is a new one just south of Highway 99, in between Hall Boulevard and 217. In addition, we have an Express Center, and that has a sort of specific state definition, but that Express Center is located at the Washington County Jail, as well as a broad network of community-based and education service providers who help us better meet people where they are and ensure the public system is accessible to the communities who need the services the most. So those are represented by those black dots. And by the way, we're working on our graphic skills. So WorkSource is by definition a partnership that involves a broad array of workforce development resources and partners. The idea really is to align these multiple efforts together to enhance services, increase impact, and ensure sustainability. So this slide shows the array of on-site and community partners currently engaged in the Washington County WorkSource system. So our goal is to continue to expand the network, but right now more than 20 organizations are actively participating in the system. To the right are some numbers from a couple years ago. You'll notice that the one center is Tualatin, the one in Tigard is so new, and with the pandemic, we're still trying to figure out what's the best way to collect the new forms of data. But I, like Matt, am confident that by just probably the first quarter of next year, we're going to have new numbers on the Tigard Center, and also how services have kind of been impacted by the pandemic. But the point here is really to give you some understanding of the size and the capacity of that system. You'll notice that these are late 2020 numbers, so about 12,000 people were served through those two centers over the course of that year. But just for some context, at the height of the recession in 2009, the two centers in Washington County served over 40,000 Washington County residents. So it's a very large and malleable system, if you will, and has the capacity to expand and contract depending upon the workforce environment. So, So the system offers an array of basic services which are designed to help people develop skills, prepare for, and connect to work. So the column on my left, which says core services, shows services that are offered at all WorkSource centers throughout the state of Oregon. So there is some regulatory expectation about what services are going to be available, and those are available in any center you go to. Now, the column on the right shows additional programs and initiatives available through the local Washington County system. So that's really where we begin to see the development of partnerships and relationships that are specific to Washington County. So the county, and I apologize for the small print here, but you have it in front of you, so hopefully you can. So the county, as Matt mentioned, the county co-invests with work systems to improve and enhance the system. This slide shows how county dollars are leveraged with other work systems resources to expand services and increase impact. So together, we are currently supporting more than $5.7 million in workforce services in Washington County, and that will give you some idea of where those dollars are going. So one project that we've worked on together, and I want to specifically thank Chair Harrington for your advocacy around this work, was a joint effort to diversify the construction workforce in Washington County. Through this partnership, we have enhanced outreach, exposure, career coaching, training, and support for 535 county residents, more than 80% being women and people of color. This includes middle school campus run by Girls Build and Beaverston School District that served 119 students last school year. This partnership is also bringing certified pre-apprenticeship programs to Washington County, including services offered by Portland Youth Builders, Oregon Tradeswomen, POIC, and Constructing Hope. As a result of these efforts, we were awarded a $1 million grant through Congresswoman Montemicci's office to support the expansion of this work in Washington County. In addition, we are using county resources to generate additional dollars through SNAP to create ongoing funding to sustain the program. As Matt mentioned, another example of us working together is the ARPA grant. This $375,000 investment by the county is leveraging nearly $700,000 in additional resources through work systems to expand services to Washington County residents. By working together, we are able to support 8 quick start trainings, 3 paid by the county and 5 paid by work systems. It doesn't actually work that way, but if you do the math, that's how it works out. I know that Pam's going to talk a lot more, I hope, about Quick Start, but this is a new short-term training delivered by PCC to help prepare underserved county residents for jobs at Intel. So far, 2 Quick Start trainings have been delivered, with another graduating on Friday, December 9th, where Commissioner Rogers will address the graduates. So 45 students have started training with over 80% completing. 18 of the 25 completers from the first 2 courses have been interviewed by Intel, and they are in the process of making job offers. Over 80% of participants have been women or people of color. The ARPA investment will also launch Driving Diversity in Washington County. This highly successful program will prepare Washington County residents for jobs in waste hauling industry with wages ranging from $50,000 to $70,000 per year with full benefits. The plan is to launch the first full cohort, about 20 people, in May of 2023 and offer the program on an ongoing basis. Our ARPA partnership will also support 60 subsidized work experiences at small Washington County businesses, those most impacted by COVID, like restaurants and retail businesses. Performance for this initiative includes 50% more will be people of color, 90% will successfully complete the internships, 34% will be hired by those local businesses, 40 or more local businesses will be served, and 20 or more, which is 50% of those small local businesses, will be owned by women or BIPOC entrepreneurs. Finally, we have been working with regional partners, including Matt, for ways to improve the quality of regional jobs and build better pathways for people to access high-quality work. Matt and his team are also very engaged and interested in this area of work, and we will be working together to align efforts and achieve our mutual goals. Thank you so much again for the opportunity to come here this morning, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I'll turn it to Jonathan here. No such.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Jonathan Colon. I'm the Director of Centro Prosperidad. I'm super excited to be here. For first time in a while that we've been live, so this is trying to get back into that sort of habit of connecting. So Centro Prosperidad is Centro Cultural's, I'm being instructed here, right? There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Centro de Prosperidad is Centro Cultural's economic development arm. Centro celebrates its 50th anniversary this year, so we're celebrating all year long. Economic development, workforce has been an integral part of Centro for the last 50 years. And over the years has taken different radiations, right? So everything from years ago to having a manufacturing arm that was called Soul Manufacturing that worked to support that particular industry. And most recently, about 6 years ago, City of Hillsborough supported the seeding of a workforce center that was reflective of some of the core visions that we had for Washington County. Through that, Centro Prosperidad down the roads was created, and we have had to define who we are, and it's helpful to begin to sort of think of where we sit. This is a very collaborative community. I think we're partners with, everybody in the room and everybody who's listed up there. But we also have to look at what function do we and how we support, right? Sometimes we're pushing, sometimes we're pulling, sometimes we're holding. Andrew does a great job at leading our region, innovating, bringing in programming, and Pam on the other side does an amazing job at sort of similar things in terms of preparing people for those things. We sit in this weird space of really serving the community through a navigation for the long term. Someone may come in and they may not be ready to join WSI or our Workforce Board's programming, or they're not ready to join some PCC programming. So we do a life plan. We work with all members of that household to really look at and hold them as they grow. As you all know, it takes 12 years to get a high school diploma. It takes 2 years for an associate's, and we go on and we on. As we think about workforce, we also have to think about it that way as well. It is not getting someone just a job. It may take 2 years. It may take 3 years, 4 years. If we go through an apprenticeship, it could take 5 years. It could take 4 years. So we're in a position to do that work. Using the resources that are provided with both of these partners at the table and many others, we're able to do that. Last year, we had about 1,979 individuals come through to seek for services, and those get into our system through different ways. We get people who are not connected to our workforce system directly. Sometimes we are pulling people off our wraparound services that Central provide. As many of you know, we have food security with a pantry. We do health and wellness. Central has cultural enrichment, information referral, and housing navigation services. Those are all, and many times, symptoms of something bigger, and it's usually tied to employment, career, pathways. So a lot of times we're not just working through the symptom where someone is short and need food assistance, or someone needs housing because of situations. Those are getting referred also to workforce to look at what is it within that system that can be supported, whether it's creating a survival job to move people into a later path, or is it an attainment of a particular thing that can open an opportunity, like a GED or language skills, digital literacy, financial empowerment. Those components are part of that process. So as with many other programs, we're a direct provider, so we do career mapping, we do trainings, we do case management, we do GED, but it's a way that we are working is doing a 360. Sometimes people may not realize that what is holding someone from moving ahead may be another member in their household. So we have to treat the entire household. Sometimes is negotiating someone taking on this activity or that activity to allow another member. So those are the kind of conversations that we come into and we planned, and we are looking at it not just for today, but we're looking at it for the long term. Of the 1,000 people that came through looking for job services, we supported 724 moving into some stage of job, whether it is short-term, whether it is a survival job, whether it is a transitional job. And one of the things that I'm describing is that we have long-term. So we have about 146 adults who are continuing. They're in a year plan or 2-year plan or 3-year plan. So they're either taking a course, they're either upskilling their digital skills, they may be having a second job in order for them to move into where their long-term plan is. And the same thing with youth. We're working with in-school youth and out-of-school youth. And we have lots of programming that we do in collaboration with our workforce board as well as PCC, and things that we do that are more aligned with the work that we do is we've had a digital literacy program to train people to actually be able to go to virtual fairs, and then we put virtual fairs on to test their skills on communicating. And amazing enough, people got jobs during that training pause, but that allowed them to get some skills that they can use at future sort of fairs. We've also recognized that there's things in community that we need to look at in order to make this a reality. So digital literacy being an important one, but also the tools. So we provided hotspots to leveraging a grant from AT&T to community so that people can do online training, so that people can do digital literacy and practice and things of that nature. In the horizon for 2023, we are looking at bringing some solutions through our way of delivering, our model of delivering. So we are introducing virtual reality and artificial intelligence at our level of delivery of services. You know, we think of how things get brought down. There is the Trader Joe's and Whole Foods way of things coming, and there's a particular community, and there's the Safeways and the, and then there's Food for Less and the Winkos. And sometimes it takes a really long time for things to come all the way down, for products to come down. So we're taking an approach to try to bring some of the things that are coming at the high level, but also to the community that would probably take another 5, 6, 8 years for it to come down. So we're bringing these things with the support of digital literacy, with the support of cultural competencies, for them to be able to play in that space already. A lot of times, one of the things to influence the pipeline is to really connect with the parent. If the parents don't understand the industries that do not currently existed in their time, they're not going to be able to sort of support their children. So we're using virtual reality to do some of that, to introduce people to both the parent and the young person into industries that are both new to both of them. We're using to stay competitive, especially for first-year college students, we're using resumes and artificial intelligence to really support their learning and how they present themselves to be competitive with other individuals that may have access that they typically would not have. And then we've brought forth to Oregon a couple of financial empowerment tools like financial coaches through a program with Unidos US, which is a national organization, to really provide that financial coaching that we generally don't have access to unless we pay for. And we're also beneficiaries of the Future Ready, so we'll be doing some navigation for healthcare and manufacturing, and we'll be introducing a couple of new components that we've worked over the pandemic, which is traditional health workers, community health workers, and all in a bilingual, bicultural sort of environment that typically did not exist till recently. And then we're moving away from sort of looking at deficits and looking at creating positives, right? So we're working with small businesses and we're working with employers who have a need to move individuals and build their skill sets. Soft skills sometimes it's digital literacy, and we're using the micro-credential sort of mindset to do that. So people are being moved through this space because it feels that they've accomplished something. There is a shorter time frame, and it's no longer you're inefficient at this or you need to build sufficiency in this. It is, let's get you this credential that can move people and motivate people. And then we're also including a parent career school this year to start introducing some of that sort of future of work that's coming down the pipeline. And then lastly, these are people who've been in programmed. A couple of examples. This can represent a 2-year, 3-year program. Guadalupe came through us for a CNA 1 when she lost her job and did not have enough to pay half of her tuition. That allowed her to go back and complete that, went and did some healthcare work, came back for CNA 2, and now we're looking at a third an option of what other fields, right? So we're looking at sterilizations, we're looking at other aspects of that industry that she can take. Isabel is also in the same situation. She started off in GED. That took almost a year to complete. That allowed her to be able to take CNA 1. She then experienced the industry, went to CNA 2, and now we're having conversations on what else in healthcare. These are sectors that we don't want to lose people once they get in, but we also realize that sometimes they get burned out. And the same thing with Sandra. Sandra went through a process where she did GED, she did language upskills, she did COVID response, and now she's working for Bienestar as a community health worker, really supporting some of that work. And none of this happens by itself. You see on the right, or your left or my right, all the individuals that we're leveraging investments from Washington County, and it's a reminder that this does not happen in a silo. And I welcome questions when we get there.
Thanks, Jonas.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's so great to be here this morning. My name is Pam Hester, and I'm the Program Dean for Community Workforce Development and the Opportunity Centers at Portland Community College. And I'm here today to talk to you about the Willow Creek Opportunity Center. A couple years ago, with some pilot funding, and then in full force this year, we transitioned to an Opportunity Center model at Willow Creek. The goal of that model is to reverse racial and economic disparities and create opportunities for people to transform their lives through education and career track employment. We offer a suite of services that help to build that pipeline of folks who are really prepared to succeed at PCC and in career track employment. We've got a suite of classes called Discover classes, which are on-ramps to PCC. We focus on the areas high growth, high demand industries, healthcare, the trades, manufacturing, tech. What we know is that people often start at PCC or other institutes of higher ed, get halfway into a degree or certification and say, you know, I thought healthcare was it, but I really don't like blood. And it's really helpful to have a sense of what you want to do when you go to college and when you want to get training. So these courses actually introduce people to careers they may not have considered. People become in their careers what they see. So if you haven't had someone in your life who's done manufacturing, this is a great opportunity to explore that. We offer career exploration workshops. We have some of that VR technology that Jonathan was describing, and folks can see what it's like to be in manufacturing or healthcare. We have Career Launch, which is an exploration, a deeper dive into what it looks like to go to college. And we have skills building workshops. So we have ABE on site, adult basic skills on site, GED prep and testing on site, English as a second language, financial literacy workshops, digital literacy workshops. And all of these are designed to create these little momentums of success that over time will help people to build their confidence, increase their skills, and create a plan for accessing education their way. We know that there's not one right way to access education. Also, at Willow Creek, we have a mechatronics lab that has a one-year certificate. Again, focusing on these shorter-term educational opportunities that are really right for folks, especially adults who can't take time out of their full-time job to go to college. We've got the quick start to semiconducting that Andrew mentioned. Individuals get paid $500 a week to be in this 2-week class. It's an investment from Work Systems and Intel and collaboration there at the WorkSource Center that has had tremendous results. And I'll talk a little bit about this on the next slide of how we weave together all of this programming. We've got emergency medical technician training, medical assistant training on site. And then we also have the WorkSource Center that's in the Willow Creek building and the Small Business Development Center. And our aim for the Opportunity Center is not just to have a collection of programs or partners that aren't collaborating together. We know that that works, but it doesn't work as well as if we all are collaborating really closely with one another. So in the instance of the Quick Start program, in our very first cohort, we had 13 folks who completed the class. We had 9 who went on to interview with Intel. Those 4 that didn't go on to interview Intel, some of them decided manufacturing wasn't the right fit. So then they go back down to the WorkSource Center and they work with our team of folks who can help them decide what is the right fit. Where do you go next? So folks don't end their time with us with just one workshop or just one class. With the investment from Washington County, we're launching some new initiatives that'll be part of the suite of services. We'll offer individualized coaching and wraparound services and navigation. We're going to bring a successful program that we were able to pilot in Multnomah County's Opportunity Center called Career Launch for Immigrants and Refugees. It's a 2-week class that helps people explore careers, build plans, learn about educational opportunities. As you might expect, we see folks in this class who come with skills, education, and background from their home countries, and they want to figure out how to apply it in the U.S., and we can help them do that. We are also going to launch the Explore Manufacturing for Immigrants and Refugees. Willow Creek Center has a strong focus on manufacturing because of where our proximity in the county. Our Discover Manufacturing class exposes folks to those careers, but ELL, or English language learners, often need a little additional support and context, definitions, or just English language support to get access to that material. So we'll have an English language faculty member there with us on site teaching that class. And then the Future Connect Summer Connect program will happen on site, and that is tuition-free summer career guidance for high school students that's focused on healthcare and manufacturing. We're excited to have that on site at Willow Creek as well. And sort of our intent with all of these programs is to make a smooth pathway. So you see on this visual, you've got folks coming to us from K-12, and a lot of those folks have a pathway from the K-12 system into the campuses, and they may never come to the Opportunity Center. But some of them have become disconnected and come into our programs. We also have community-based partners. Jonathan and his team send folks who are ready to explore careers and get connected with the college. We may do math refreshers and digital literacy, and then the next step is the on-ramp to manufacturing. But there are all these exit opportunities, right? Someone may take the quick start and then come back to us for a full degree or certification. So we want to make sure there's an easy exit, easy entrance into PCC and connection to career track employment. And that is all about collaboration. So I'll hand it back to you.
Great, thank you, Pam. Slide in here, Jonathan, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Pam, Andrew, and Jonathan. So Chair Harrington and Commissioners, with that, that's a glimpse into the workforce development system here in Washington County. There's certainly more that is going on here in our county, a lot of great work. So with that, we'd be happy to take any questions or comments that you have for the Economic Development team or for our panelists. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
Yeah, good morning and thank you. That's a great presentation. It's always good to hear about workforce development. I heard, I was just telling the commission earlier this morning that I was at Umpqua Community College last week and heard from their president. They're certainly focused on a lot of these same programs as well. So congratulations on that. And we're all pulling the same direction. I think there was two things that I heard there. Mechatronics is kind of a new term, so if you could maybe explain that a little bit, because that's what I heard last week as well, so just for the purpose of our audience. And then the other was the $500 a week. So quite frankly, I'm trying to get my grandson interested in some workforce training, and the biggest opposition is he can't leave his job, and $500 a week won't be enough. So is there other times that they can do these, like evenings, weekends, and some things like that, where they could kind of do parallel work and this program?
Yeah, we do offer it in the evenings. So have your grandson find us at pcc.edu/opportunity centers, and we've got a sign up there.
Okay.
And mechatronics, it's the intersection, so I'll give you the layperson's term, but it's the intersection between manufacturing and electronics. If you think about it, when you have a fab that is producing things, you've got all these machines. And so you need people who can fix the machines, who can problem solve, who can connect the electronics of the machine and operate them. So it's sort of the intersection in manufacturing and electronics that makes the whole thing work. And we invite you to come out to the lab and see all the equipment. It's pretty fascinating.
Great, thank you. Good job. Appreciate this. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie. Following up on your question about the $500 a week, Andrew or Jonathan, I wonder if you want to talk a little bit more about some of the wraparound supports that are part of the programs that your teams administer, and just give a little more of a definition around wraparound supports.
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner Willie. Well, that $500 is supported by grant money from a state grant that we received. And, you know, to be honest with you, that's probably the most amount of money we've ever paid to someone to participate in training. It's at the high end of the spectrum. And it's in part because those resources just are not available. They happen to be available in this round in part because folks were awash in money and they were willing to allow us to use it for that purpose. But it's a critical point, is that people can't afford to stop working and pursue training. They need to continue to have income in order to participate in training. So it's a space that we're going to continue to look at and continue to explore ways that we can generate those kinds of subsidies for people who do want to go in training. But it's a tough nut to sell, especially to a lot of federal and state funders. It's just tough. Other wraparounds, though, I mean, that's part of the value of working together, right? So we have a J.P. Morgan grant that allows us to provide childcare to people who are engaged in training programs. We have a weird grant from, the Department of Labor, who has a small subsidy for, tools or boots or whatever it might be. So it's making those connections between the various resources, which is really the value of working together. Because if we've learned anything through this pandemic, it's like workforce development is just not about skills. It's about housing, it's about childcare, it's about food, it's about, all of those other things that wrap around and impact people's ability to participate in skill training. So we've got to think more broadly about how we support people to go into these programs. And to Jonna's point, it takes a long time to take someone from poverty to prosperity. It's hard and it's expensive, and we just have to acknowledge that and be prepared to get behind it, because the payoff is amazing. If you do the numbers, it's worth it. But on the front end, we have to be prepared as policymakers and as professionals to go in knowing this is not going to be easy and it's not going to be cheap. But if we succeed, the payoff is enormous. So.
And Andrew hit it. So the big one here is that, these types of dollars are very limited. They generally don't exist, and you have to have intention to creating those opportunities. A few summers ago, we did Earn and Learn through a youth program that Andrew sort of led, that allowed people to actually not take overtime during the summer and get paid to finish their GED, which then led them to be able to take a short-term career that they would have not been able to, right? So it's these level of thinkings and organizing. We're part of the Aligned Partner, and sometimes we have to spend money from one fund creatively. The system may max out on what they can contribute, but I may be able to throw $500 into that mix to get someone a $5,000 trucking CDL that will put them to work tomorrow, right? So it's that level of system sort of coordination and leveraging, but it's because there's a shortage of investments, and it's really hard to look at giving someone a salary or paying them to learn, but we're actually paying them to move. Paying them to be able to not depend on system. So it's really important to have that level of thinking, and I think strategically, and when you guys go into your next budget, collectively as a county and as a region, these are the type of things that are helpful to have conversations about how to make these true impactful. Because sometimes people have to live. Sometimes we tell someone, I can't really help you with your work, but we may be able to give you rent assistance on this side, so that that money that you would have had for rent, you could use to pay that element that you need, right? So it's these types of be creative, but we could be more intentional and bring it a little bit more accessible. Yeah.
Oh, just two quick things. Andrew, thank you for your notes. You just used all of them, just about. I was going to use them tonight at a presentation. I don't need it now, but at some point, I'm trying to wrap my head around, talking about wraparound, how we have a educational system where, we have 12 years, and then we have an educational system of 2 years at community college and maybe 2 to 4 at a university, to prepare people for meaningful jobs, and yet somehow you're able to do it in just a few weeks. And somehow there's a real disconnect here of what's going on. So maybe at some point, you guys, I know we've got a ton of other things today, but I'd like to hear that. Maybe, Andrew, you can get back to me, because it just doesn't equate.
Well, and one of the things that the Quick Start prepares folks for are those entry-level jobs, but that's not going to help someone progress in a career. And so we are making a solid connection back to the programs at PCC and longer term so that folks have a career path and they can continue to progress and earn more and get promotions going forward. So it is a pathway. But we can talk more about it.
Commissioner Treese?
Thank you very much for this presentation. It's really enlightening. I've worked with many of you and have had some experience here as well. We talked, Jonathan, you talked about really culturally specific work, and I'd ask Andrew and Pam what your experiences have been in that arena as well.
Yeah, so we intentionally recruit and hire staff who come from communities of color and from diverse backgrounds so that they can connect with our participants. Our focus of the Opportunity Center really is to reduce racial and economic disparities. So we are using a strong equity lens in those centers and trying to create networking opportunities for folks to, for instance, we've got some programs that connect people with mentors who come from their communities, who are in the fields that they want to pursue. And to see others that look and come from their communities succeeding is really, really powerful. We're just about to launch some programming that is community-based cohort networking support, so weekly check-ins to help people continue on their path. So it's a really critically important part of what we do. And then we also partner really closely with our community-based partners who are doing the work and who have that long-term relationship. And when they hand them off to us and they say they're a trusted partner and they trust us, then that goes a long way in building the trust with the communities. And then we can work really collaboratively with their frontline staff to make sure that folks are supported.
Yeah, I think that's been sort of, it's somewhat unique for our system. I mean, you notice, remember the green dots, and then there's all the community-based dots and educational dots around that. Well, that's a very deliberate strategy on the part of our board, Pam as a former member of that board, and Roy. And the point really is, like, the public workforce system is what it is. It's a collection of, legacy systems, most of them state-based. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be there. So the real question is, how do we make sure that that system is as accessible and successful as it can be for the people in our community who need those services the most? And Pam, when she worked with us, she did many years ago, she started, yeah, not that, it was a couple, but she started a thing called the Aligned Partner Model. And the idea was to build relationships with community-based organizations, substantive relationships, so that those community-based organizations, many of whom serve specific populations, whether they're communities of color, or whether they're folks that have been impacted by the justice system, whatever it might be, but to build substantive relationships with those community partners, because oftentimes that's the place where people are most comfortable receiving services. And by substantive, I mean that if someone shows up at John's shop and is more comfortable getting served there, when they're ready to avail themselves of resources available in the public system, they're prioritized to access resources in that system. It isn't perfect, I'm going to be the first to tell you, but the notion is really, how do we take advantage of those community-based organizations and use that to ensure that when someone is ready to avail themselves of those other resources, those legacy resources, that they can successfully access and use those dollars to advance themselves and support their families. So it's a deliberate strategy, it's ongoing. That's why I said we have 20 of those dots now. I can't wait till it's 50, because the idea is we need to build these networks, because it's the only way that we're going to be able to meet people where they are and ensure that that public system is really as effective as it can be. So,
thank you.
Commissioner Fye?
Thank you, Chair Harrington. I don't have a question. I have a comment. Thank you for a great presentation. I really enjoyed a lot of information, but really I think having a multiple presenters really did well for this presentation, because I was here listening and writing notes. Andrew, your answer to Commissioner Willie's question around the 500, I just want to appreciate that answer. It really resonated with me, and good foresight on your end. I think that's how we innovate these programs and how we uplift people and out of poverty and bring them to the journey Jonathan was talking about, to prosperity. So I really commend you all for that. In terms of the Willow Creek, my comment was around the Willow Creek, those apartment complex right across that building. I know Bienestar has a Promotora program, so I was wondering, I was just going to suggest a partnership opportunity with Bienestar to really recruit some of the community members that reside in those apartment complex, to invite them to your interesting program that you're ready to implement around immigrants and refugees, because I know a lot of the community members and Bienestar really uplifted that program that they have, helping community members around housing and housing affordability. So just wanted to plug that for Bienestar, and I'm sure I see your heads are nodding, and I'm a graduate of PCC a million years ago. Andrew, I'll join you on that journey, saying a long time ago. And so I'm a supporter, and I appreciate all the work. It's not easy to really build, especially the people that we want to make an immediate difference in their life. It's not easy reaching those people, and I know you all work hard to do that, and partnering with Washington County. And Matt, I commend you all the work you're doing to bring this forward. So good job on your end.
Thank you, Commissioner Fye.
I'll wrap up. I really appreciate the four of you coming today and bringing this information forward. You've really brought to life how important it is that we provide access, opportunities, and supports for people to move forward in their lives. I am struck as an aunt. I've told all my nieces and nephews the story of, I expect you to be 100 years old, and you're going to school, kindergarten through 12th grade, so you really only get to be a kid for about 20 years. And drawing that slice of the pie in, helping them realize that life is very long. But we're each our own individual people with our own life experience and our pathways, and not everyone has the same opportunity and access. Some folks encounter different barriers, different building blocks in their lives. So it's really something to hear how this limited public funding has been able to achieve results for people, because people really make up our community. Thank you for helping us do that and be better practiced at it, and all the collaborations and partnerships that you have fostered, so that we can continue to practice the art of the possible in ensuring that Washington County continues.
Certified Information Systems Auditor, a CISA, on staff, and the auditor's office never had one. With the retirement of the county's longtime chief information officer several years ago, we identified information technology services as a high-risk area for the county. And I took the opportunity to hire the county's first CISA. We identified information security as a priority and had planned this review with several more to follow when the pandemic set the best laid plans of the world awry. Next slide, please.
Auditor Hutzler, this is Clerk Moss. We do not have your PowerPoint.
I submitted it with the agenda, but okay. We undertook this project with two objectives. First, to determine whether the county had an appropriate information security management program. And by appropriate, we meant were the governance structure, authority, independence, budget, and staffing of the program sufficiently robust to implement information security controls throughout all county departments. Our second objective was to assess the extent to which the Information Technology Services Department, ITS, had implemented industry standard information security controls. We did this by examining its implementation of the first 6 of 20 globally accepted controls developed by the Center for Internet Security, CIS. An organization of the size and complexity of Washington County should have all 20 of those CIS controls in place. However, lacking the resources to examine all 20, we focused on those characterized as basic cyber hygiene. Scope defines the limits of an audit project. For this work, we examined information security management and controls in place through July 2021. It's important to recognize, as the county administrator points out in her response, that this report does not describe the current state of information security controls in Washington County. On the very day that we began this project, ITS kicked off its own multi-year effort to explore, adopt, and implement an information security framework for the county. And it has been working continuously to address control weaknesses that we have brought to their attention throughout the course of the project. Our controls review was limited to the 6 basic controls set out in version 7.1 of the CIS controls. Version 7.1 was the current version of the controls when we began and until just before we completed our fieldwork. As the county administrator points out, CIS has since issued version 8 of the controls, and ITS has adopted that as its information security framework. It's also important to note that the Chief Information Officer recognizes that the county should implement all of the CIS controls, and every one of the controls we reviewed is included in version 8. To protect the county, we describe our findings in this public report only at a high level with limited details. We have identified specific control deficiencies to ITS throughout the course of the project so that they might address them, and in a confidential, detailed report to the Chief Information Officer delivered through the Office of County Counsel. At a high level, we can report that we found deficiencies in county IT information security management that were concerning. And we found serious deficiencies in the implementation of basic security controls. Also, to avoid risk to the county, we do not publicly report the details of our recommendations to address specific control deficiencies. So the recommendations we present here relate only to our first objective, IT security management. Although we have omitted our detailed findings regarding information security management, they are implicit in our recommendations for action by the county. We recommend the following actions to improve the governance and management of the information security function. The county administrator should formally establish information technology services as the central technology service provider for all county agencies and its responsibility for countywide information security. The county administrator should submit for adoption by your board an administrative policy establishing an information security governance framework for the county. That framework should include a steering committee of appropriate stakeholders to provide oversight of the information security program. The county administrator should implement that framework through administrative procedures that assign responsibility for development and implementation of a countywide information security program to a qualified information security officer, or ISO, with sufficient staff, budget, authority, and independence to effectively implement information security countywide. The ISO and the steering committee should propose countywide information security policies and procedures for adoption by the board or county administration. And the ISO should implement an information security program that uses industry accepted processes to continuously assess and address technology risks, including the control deficiencies identified in our review. All of that, the culmination of many months of work, is summarized in a one-page report. I think this is the first time in my 26 years as an auditor that management's response is longer than the auditor's report. To recap, this report is so short because we present our findings only at a very high level. Those findings include none of the details of the control weaknesses we found, and our recommendations address only information security management and governance, with the single exception of the carefully crafted phrase in recommendation 5 that the ISO address technology risks, quote, including the control deficiencies identified in this review, close quote. The reason for this abbreviated report is that the Chief Information Officer expressed his concern that revealing weaknesses in county information security would represent a significant risk to county information systems. We must rely upon his level of concern to communicate the seriousness of the control deficiencies we observed. You may also wonder why it's taken over 2 years to complete this review. There are several reasons. First, this project was undertaken in the midst of a raging pandemic. As the county administrator points out, COVID-19 affected all county operations, including ITS. Just as the demands of responding to the pandemic delayed the implementation of an information security framework, it also impacted ITS's ability to respond timely to auditor requests for information in connection with this review. This project also suffered from what auditors refer to as scope creep, the gradual expansion of the original scope of a project, which increases the time and resources required to complete the report. As I mentioned earlier, just as we began this review, ITS initiated its effort to identify and adopt a set of information security controls that would allow it to assess its security environment and address any security risks. Often, simply knowing the auditor is coming can move the county to action. We extended the time frame of our review so that we might report not just on control deficiencies, but also on the progress ITS was making to improve security controls. That was a mistake for which I take responsibility. In retrospect, we should have defined the scope in the first phase of the project and stuck with it. We should have decided on a date as of which we would assess information security controls and let management describe in its response any progress it had made in addressing the findings and recommendations of our report. As it turns out, the details of control deficiencies and progress in addressing them didn't make it into the report anyway. A third cause of delay was outside interference with the audit process. In the midst of writing the report, my IT auditor accepted a transfer to another county department. She took with her the confidential working papers of this project with the understanding that she would be able to complete her draft report without interference from her new boss. That proved not to be the case. It took me 7 months and the intervention of an attorney to regain control of those files so that I could complete the project. And finally, I repeatedly revised this report to address the CIO's concerns that it might increase the risk of a security breach. I know that my former staff, a certified information security auditor, felt strongly that we could provide additional information to the public without increasing that risk. But without the benefit of her advice, I was not confident that I could submit a detailed report that did not cross that line. I'm pleased to report that the county administrator and the chief information officer accept our findings regarding deficiencies in information security governance and management and in the implementation of information security controls. The CAO intends to implement all of our recommendations within a year. The chief information officer is already recruiting for the information security officer position, and the CAO is drafting an administrative policy for adoption by your board to implement all 5 of the recommendations in this report. I want to thank the management and staff of ITS for their cooperation and support, and particularly our new Chief Information Officer, Sam Kim, for his review and feedback on the many preliminary drafts of this report. I also want to recognize Certified Information Systems Auditor Sherry Kirk for her work on this project when she was a member of my staff. This was Sherry's project, her first as lead IT auditor. Had Sherry been able to complete this report before her transfer or without interference from outside the auditor's office, her name would be on the cover. Thank you, Sherry, for your efforts. The CAO or I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of our auditor on his report? Seeing none, I'll turn the table over to our pro tem County Administrative Officer, Marnie Kyle, for a management report.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, and thank you, Auditor Hutzler, for the work on this important audit. County Administrator Angie's response is included in the packet, and we also have staff available this morning if you have any questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of Ms. Kyle on the management report? Seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation of the audit and the management report. I believe the information is posted on the Washington County website. Next, we'll move on to public hearings. Our first public hearing and our only public hearing for today is with regard to a ordinance, and I would like to ask for a motion to read ordinance number 890 by title only. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Mr. Anderson, could you do us the honors?
Yes. Ordinance 890, an ordinance amending the Community Development Code, CDC, to implement the requirements of 2021 Oregon Senate Bill 458 relating to middle housing land divisions and making minor amendments related generally to middle housing.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Staff report, please. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Harrington and Commissioners, and good morning. I'm Ann Kelly, a Senior Planner in Long Range Planning, to present our Middle Housing Land Division's staff report to you. Ordinance number 890. We will look at the context for middle housing land divisions from the state bills, their mandates and options, what they do and don't let us do. We will look at what's filed in the existing ordinance and some potential recommended changes. Thanks. So at the state level, we have two bills impacting this ordinance. House Bill 2001 was passed in 2019, and in June, we presented an ordinance to you which you adopted to get the bulk of the middle housing provisions into our code. Those now allow middle housing, which the state defines as duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, cottage clusters, and townhouses, to allow those and allow them in greater numbers and more variety in our residential neighborhoods. As part of that ordinance, we did adopt some of the middle housing land divisions provisions of Senate Bill 458 as well. And now we are proposing the remainder of standards for middle housing land divisions, Senate Bill 458, and those are primarily procedural things. The state defines middle housing land divisions as a partition or subdivision of a lot or parcel on which the development of middle housing is allowed, and that's rather important because it makes a development site one lot or parcel as compared to other types of developments and land divisions, which might be several. The intent of Senate Bill 458 is to allow more people to own homes on their own lots, expand access to the buyer's market. We and other jurisdictions in Oregon have to allow an expedited land division for all middle housing types now. The earlier bill, HB 2001, really only provided for division of townhouses. We are now all subject to allowing these expedited divisions for all types of middle housing. And this ordinance also will make some minor amendments to what we adopted in June. Senate Bill 458 comes with some mandates that local jurisdictions have to adhere to. We do have to provide tentative approval within 63 days of a complete application for a middle housing land division. That's good for 3 years and then automatically expires if a plat has not recorded. If there is an appeal, that has to be a decision on that has to be issued by a referee or a hearings officer within 42 days of the filing of the appeal. And we have to, actually, if that's appealed, then it has to go to a court of appeals. It can't go to LUBA because statute says that a middle housing land division is not a land use decision. Then there are certain requirements that we approve an application if we receive a tentative plan with evidence of a middle housing proposal. That's a middle housing development proposal, which is different than the land division proposal, that meets land use provisions applicable to middle housing. The approval requirements to approve also include that the middle housing land division proposes exactly one dwelling unit per lot, and that has to be middle housing. There can't be any building within protected resource areas, natural areas. The buildings, of course, have to meet building codes. And we have to see that separate utilities are provided for each unit with easements for those as well as easements for pedestrian access in common areas. We do have certain options that come with Senate Bill 458, and we are proposing to exercise those. We can require a plat note that specifies the approval was specifically for a middle housing land division and that no further division of the lots is allowed. We can require a right-of-way minimum along site frontage and street improvements only where resulting lots will abut a street. And we can also require the final plat recording before building permits are issued. So there have to be legal lots before the building permits get issued. However, we can allow applications for building permits concurrent with the middle housing land division application. There are also things we cannot require. We can't require a hearing for the decision except for an appeal. We can't require minimum lot sizes or frontages at all for middle housing lots unless they are townhouses. For individual lots, we can't require vehicle access, parking, or driveways for each of those. And then we cannot require approval criteria that the bill doesn't specifically allow. The key CDC amendments for middle housing land divisions, those that we adopted in June provided a definition, the limit to 1 unit per lot, right-of-way improvements, setbacks, and certain other things. With this ordinance, we're mostly looking at standards for application and review, hearings and notices, appeals, that would be appeal hearings. And we're doing some clarifications to the earlier adopted provisions. The Planning Commission heard this ordinance on both November 2nd and November 16th. At the first hearing, they got some testimony. There was an individual asking some questions about a particular site with interest in doing cottage clusters. The Fair Housing Council also contacted the Planning Commission. They noted that we hadn't done a housing needs analysis or Goal 10 findings, which are housing findings. The county is not subject to the housing needs analysis requirements that cities are. And we will, as always, have the goals findings for you on the date of the hearing when it's to be adopted, hopefully. We also heard from a developer and his client. They had some testimony and requested that we make some revisions regarding a certain setback and some right-of-way minimums. And those are things that came up with a circumstance that was unforeseen by the bills and by us, specifically where you have a standard land division in advance of a middle housing land division. So we are recommending some changes. The Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval with engrossment to accommodate those changes. And I won't go through this in detail, but the recommendations are to reduce a side setback for middle housing, and then to allow its further reduction more broadly in certain cases. We are also clarifying an existing reduction for other types of housing. And we are, in terms of right-of-way, we had previously adopted a minimum along site frontage, and now where there has been a prior subdivision, a standard subdivision or development, we're allowing an alternative where existing full improvements to county standard have been built. We don't need additional right-of-way to meet that minimum. So that will be an alternative. So staff's recommendation is that you conduct the public hearing, order engrossment of the ordinance to reflect the changes described in the staff report and shown in its attachment A, and continue the hearing for the engrossed ordinance to January 24th and February 7th, and direct staff to mail notice of the changes consistent with requirements of Chapter 10 of the county charter. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the staff report. Commissioners, do you have any questions before we go into public hearing? Okay. Seeing none, I'd like to open a public hearing. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone signed up?
We do not have anyone. Oh, Mr. Feek, please step forward. And then we'll have one online after Mr. Feek.
Thank you.
I'm Dale Feek, Madam Chair Harrington and Commissioners. This has a special interest in mine. I want to let you know first, well, I'm chair of the Washington County Citizen National Network, but I'm speaking for myself, not for that group today. It has special interest for me because my mom prided herself to be an owner of property and renting it out. And I lived with her for the first 21 years of my life in La Grande, Oregon, graduated from Eastern Oregon College. And I lived where we had 4 apartments on that property right on Adams Avenue. And, well, I take that. And we had 2 other houses in a different part of the city. My mom fought many times with the city council, with La Grande City Council and the people in managing the parking in front of her place that she rented to college students so they could get a good education and do the workforce stuff here so people could get not only good jobs, I'm for good jobs, but I'm for good education and a civic education for people to get involved in what I'm doing now, okay? And so we need to have not only workforce stuff, but we need to have people engaged in city, in engagement with the process of government. So anyway, she fought hard to maintain her property right to have people to park there so they could have a place to park. So it's to balance the idea of governmental regulations and also to have it so people can have a place to live that's affordable is a tricky thing to do. But it's very important to manage both. So I compliment and am in support of this staff recommendation of order engrossment of the ordinance to reflect the changes described in the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Feek. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to testify as part of this public hearing? Seeing none, Clerk Moss, for those online.
Yes, we have Matt Wellner. Matt, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Great. Matt Wellner, address 15955 Southwest 150th Avenue, Tigard, Oregon 97224. I think you all know that I participated in the Planning Commission. I'm in my last term. Ann did a great job describing the ordinance and the changes that were identified kind of during the Planning Commission proceedings relative to some testimony that was brought forth, in particular the setbacks and the right-of-way dedications. I just wanted to come and voice my support for your approval of Ordinance 890, and I'll leave it at that. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matt. Would anyone else online wish to provide comment on this public hearing for up to 2 minutes? Give you just a moment to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing any additional hands, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Wellner, for joining us today. I know that I am comfortable speaking for the board and saying that we appreciate all the work that the members of the Planning Commission do and all of their deliberations. Seeing that there is no one else wanting to testify during this public hearing, I'm going to close this public hearing and ask the board for a motion to order the engrossment of the ordinance to reflect the changes described in the staff report and shown in attachment A to Ordinance 890, and that we continue the hearing for the engrossed ordinance to June 24th and February 7th of our upcoming new year, and direct staff to mail the notice of changes consistent with requirements of Chapter 10 of the county charter. What are the wishes of the commission?
So I think you misspoke and said June 24th instead of January 24th.
It says January 24th. Oh, I said June.
Yes.
I do that quite frequently. Thank you for catching that mistake.
Sure.
I meant January 24th, followed by February 7th. It's a good thing there isn't a second month that starts with the letter F.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience with my mistakes. And before we do a roll call vote, I just want to thank our staff for bringing this ordinance and the staff report to life for me. For whatever reason, I struggled to really internalize the role of Senate Bill 458, and I finally got it. I mean, I was judicious in reading the packet and the staff report, but you made it click today, so thank you. Clerk Moss, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Treese?
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Fye?
Aye.
Vice Chair Willie?
Yes.
Chair Harrington?
Yes, thank you. And we will come back to the engrossed ordinance on January 24th. All right, next we'll move on to our action agenda, and we have 2 items today. And the first one is relative to our role with regard to solid waste management and recycling for the urban unincorporated areas of Washington County. And so we have our staff here to tell us about a proposal with a sanitary sewer certificate. So, welcome.
Thank you so much, Chair Harrington. It is still, no, it's afternoon now. Good afternoon, Chair Harrington, Board of County Commissioners. For the record, my name is Mira Samantal. I am the Interim Director of Health and Human Services. So as the Chair mentioned, we are here before you today for an action item to discuss the transfer of a sanitary service certificate from West Slope Garbage Service to Evergreen Disposal and Recycling. So I have with me Tom Eggleston, our Solid Waste and Recycling Manager, and I will turn it over to Tom for today's presentation.
Thanks, Mira. Good afternoon, Chair Harrington, Commissioners. I had good morning in my notes too, but I caught that. I just want to refer back to, because we're talking about this topic, kind of reflect on the Driving for Diversity program that was highlighted in the economic development presentation. I thought that was a great opportunity. I know they did that program in Portland, and so we've been talking with the Holler Association about that coming out here. So exciting to see that happening on that front as well. So, and also we are joined today by John Romero. He's in the audience here. John is the current owner of West Slope Garbage Service. So as we talk about John, I know he's standing behind me, looking through the back of my head. So this morning we're here to talk about the transfer of sanitary service certificate number 10 from West Slope Garbage Service to Evergreen Disposal and Recycling. So a little bit of background. Evergreen Disposal and Recycling is purchasing the inventory and assets of West Slope Garbage Service. John Romero, the gentleman in the audience today, is the current owner of West Slope Garbage Service. He's also an equal owner of Evergreen Disposal with Jeff Walker, who is a current owner of Walker Garbage Service, which is also a franchisee in Washington County. This ownership group also owns and operates Washington County Dropbox, which is a subcontractor of Walker Garbage Service, West Slope Garbage Service, and Evergreen Disposal Service that manages this subcontract for Dropbox services within their certificate areas. West Slope is serving a pretty small area between Beaverton and the city of Portland, and it includes in this certificate 300 residential accounts, 9 multifamily accounts, and 15 commercial accounts. Looking at that on the scale of our current system, we serve about 68,000 residential customers and in the 3,000 to 4,000 range for commercial accounts. So this is a small sliver of our service area. Looking at West Slope service area map to kind of zoom in on the area, this is the West Slope area. You can see the boundary line for Multnomah County on the side there. The kind of bow on the north, I understand, is Sunset Highway. This is West Slope's current service certificate area under certificate number 10. The hash marked area is in the city of Beaverton, and that is also served by West Slope Garbage Service. The city of Beaverton recently approved a certificate transfer from West Slope to Evergreen in early October. So that will come together in real life, not on our maps that look funny with jurisdictional boundaries. The certificate transfer process is laid out in Washington County Code, Chapter 8.04, which is our solid waste control code. Specifically, Section 804-280 identifies that a certificate holder may transfer the certificate or a portion of that certificate area to another after written notice and approval by the board, by your board. The board shall approve the transfer if it finds that the transferee meets all of the applicable requirements of the chapter. Staff did receive a complete transfer application from West Slope and Evergreen on September 2022. Staff conducted a review looking at the requirements for the application of a certificate in Washington County Code. That criterion included a complete application submittal. We received that. Overview of the types of service that would be provided and ensurement those align with the current service standards. Making sure that the service providers have adequate equipment, adequate facilities, adequate personnel, which they do. They currently provide service in our community. And they use authorized disposal sites, and they also maintain a surety bond. This was all confirmed in staff's analysis of the application. Upon transfer of a certificate, if approved by your board, certificate number 10 would become part of certificate number 2, and it would be held by Evergreen Disposal and Recycling. That certificate number 2 would include the area of West Slope that we just saw on that previous map, but in addition to a rural area south of Hillsborough and south of the city of Cornelius that Evergreen Disposal and Recycling currently serves. Combined, certificate number 2 would still only serve 527 residential, 9 multifamily, and 32 commercial customer accounts. Most of the service conducted by Evergreen is within the city of Cornelius and the city of Hillsborough. Staff took this to the Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee in November at their meeting. The advisory committee voted unanimously to recommend approval of the transfer by your board. We also notified interested parties list that we maintain in the beginning of November of the GRAC meeting and the opportunity to comment, and no comments were received. So staff's recommendation is that your board does accept the recommendation of the Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee and accept staff's findings that Evergreen Disposal and Recycling Service meets all of the applicable requirements met by the original certificate holder as required by Washington County Code, and approves the transfer of sanitary service certificate number 10, currently held by West Slope Garbage Service, to Evergreen Disposal and Recycling pursuant to the conditions outlined in the staff report. That is the end of my staff report.
Could you back up one? Commissioners, do you have any questions on this recommendation and the staff findings?
I'd just like to say thank you for the presentation, and I'd also like to thank Mr. Romero for being in the room today.
Yes. And for learning more about other county workings than he ever thought he would before. So
Including cybersecurity, right?
there you go. Thank you, sir. Seeing no questions, I would ask the commission for a motion on these 2 items as enumerated in the staff recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you, staff, for your diligent work. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Next, we have our second action item for the day, and that is to approve the 2022 Washington County Transit Development Plan update. I would like to say, as the board representative to the committee that helps do this work with staff expertise, it's a lot of fun. You learn different things about the community, and our staff works in partnership with our various public agencies, transportation public agencies and partners. And I'm really pleased that Ms. Christine Deffabaugh is here today to present the recommended plan.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Yes, I am here, and with me virtually is Giammi Valentine, who has been the lead senior planner on this project. And I think you can see him on your screen. Okay. So I will just briefly introduce the agenda item today, that we are here to present the 2022 Transit Development Plan and seek your approval of the resolution and accept the plan. This is the second time we've been to you with this. The first Transit Development Plan was done 2 years ago, and it is a requirement for us to be eligible to receive the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund. So thank you again in advance for all your work, Chair Harrington, on the Transit Committee, And I will turn this over to Diami, who will walk through the PowerPoint presentation. And Diami, just say next slide, and I'll do that bit.
Great. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Diami Valentine, a Senior Transportation Planner with Department of Land Use and Transportation. Next slide, please. So I'm here to provide a brief overview of the purpose of the Transit Development Plan. And we were before you, I believe, October 11th to share some of the priorities that are included in the Transit Development Plan to advance, and which are included in this plan. I'm also going to provide a brief overview of the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, which this is an eligibility requirement to receive those funds and then seek approval of the Transit Development Plan. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, the Transit Development Plan, it identifies and prioritizes the public transportation investments for areas outside of TriMet and SMART, the South Metro area regional transit districts, as well as community connector services within the TriMet district. And the TDP meets the eligibility requirements in the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund administrative rules for public transportation investments. The Transit Development Plan prioritizes investments for that funding for not only the next biennium, but also future investment opportunities beyond the next 2 years. The TDP also provides, as Chris mentioned, it is updated every 2 years. So you will see us on a frequent basis here in advance of each biennium. And the TDP reflects priorities recommended by the County Transit Advisory Committee, which the chair chairs and was appointed by the board. Next slide, please. So a brief overview of the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund. This was established out of that House Bill 2017, which is an employee payroll tax with the particular focus of maintaining and expanding existing systems, improving access and service to lower income households, making sure that there is reduced service fragmentation between service providers and providing student services as well. And consistent with the STIF legislation, the Transit Development Plan does prioritize investments that improves service to low-income communities, reduces service fragmentation, and does serve student transportation needs. Next slide, please. And this map does reflect kind of the service district areas and the focus of the Transit Development Plan, which is the green identifies the areas outside TriMet and SMART districts. And the Transit Development Plan does establish and identify those priorities for public transportation improvements. We also are a subrecipient for transportation services inside TriMet districts. So those funds are approved by TriMet's House Bill 2017 Transit Advisory Committee. Next slide, please. So a quick overview of the process. The Transit Advisory Committee met 4 times in 2022. They reviewed and provided input on needs and opportunities, as well as recommended investment priorities for the upcoming biennium. We also sought public comment and identifying opportunities and needs through an online survey, as well as tabling events, stakeholder briefings, and briefings before the Washington County Coordinating Committee and its Transportation Advisory Committee. Next slide, please. Included in the transit development plan update, we incorporated what we heard from the community in terms of updating our needs assessment. We also reflected new equity analysis mapping to be current with the most recent available data. We also updated the transit networks, not only of Ride Connection, our service provider, but also other transit providers, including TriMet and adjacent county service providers. The bulk of the work during this update was focused on community connector shuttle analysis and prioritization, which we shared at your October 11th work session. And then made sure to incorporate those, the priorities that were reflected and recommended by the Transit Advisory Committee into the Transit Development Plan to advance to the Oregon Transportation Commission. Next slide, please. So staff recommendation is to approve by resolution and order the 2022 Transit Development Plan update. And following your board's approval, the priority projects reflected in the TDP will be incorporated into TriMet's Public Transportation Improvement Plan, which is reviewed by TriMet's board and advanced to the Oregon Transportation Commission, which will take action in early 2023. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Diami. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our staff today on this plan?
No, I sat in on those meetings, and that the committee did a very good job. So I have nothing to add.
I have a quick question, Chris and Diami. I wasn't at the Chair Harrington, this is a workshop you attended in my absence for the JPAC workshops. I'm wondering how the two plan would align with the high capacity strategy and the outcome of that workshop. Did any of that get into this plan, or will that be considered?
Diami, do you want to respond to that? I could just say briefly that that's why we update this every 2 years as plans change, and that one of the keys is reducing service fragmentation. So one of the roles of these services is really help serve areas that aren't easily served by fixed route transit. So we're nimble and can respond to changes to make those connections. So there's nothing specific. Diami sits on that HCT committee. So do you have anything to add based on your work, Diami?
No, I agree. I mean, this is a very near-term focused planning document. So kind of 5 years is the time frame or the planning horizon. That high capacity transit plan, which is reflected in the regional transportation plan, is definitely more aspirational and thinking longer term. So there will be an opportunity to, as Chris mentioned, update this and reflect any outcomes of that work, certainly, that pertain to more near-term investments.
Right. And I would think that some policy language about consistent with the state direction of really trying to reduce service fragmentation and serve these first last mile needs could be something we see at a policy level in the RTP.
So I would clarify it that that workshop was providing input towards a future RTP. This plan has to respond to the community needs of today, the system that exists today, and all of its gaps and deficiencies, and try and bridge our current services to address the needs of today. So as mentioned, as that system is changed through that regional plan, then we'll have something different to respond to. Yeah. So thank you very much for the staff report I appreciate the care and deliberation that our staff and partners and members of the committee put in the time to look at data and information, as well as experiential information that come in through our community members, and try to advance solutions to address community need. So at this juncture, we have a recommended plan before us today, and I would ask, what are the wishes of the commission with regard to approving this new 2022 Transit Development Plan update?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Job well done, staff. Thank you for joining us. We'll next move on to our second public comment period of today's meeting. This is an opportunity for members of our community to come and speak with us for up to 5 minutes a person. Clerk Moss.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. We had no one in the audience that I am seeing sign up. Would any members in our online attendees wish to provide comment for up to 5 minutes on any county-related topic? Give you just a moment to utilize the raised hand function. Not seeing any hands, Chair Harrington.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to board announcements, and I'll kick it off and try to make sure I keep my J months straight. So tomorrow we have a all-day training as the Board of Directors for the Clean Water Services Utility. We'll start that meeting at 9 a.m. Then next Tuesday will be our last round of board meetings for the month. Tuesday, December 13th, we'll have a work session that starts in the afternoon, followed by a board member in the evening. Then we'll be taking the following 2 Tuesdays off from official work. We'll kick off the new year the day after the holiday weekend. On Tuesday, January 3rd, we will have the ceremonial swearing in of the various county elected officials. That will start at 9 in the morning. Then we'll have the Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting starting at 10. Our board business meeting soon thereafter, approximately 10:30, and then we'll convene our work session in the afternoon at 1 p.m. And then we're fully into the new year in the month of January. We will have a roundtable on Thursday, January 5th, starting at 9 in the morning, followed by meetings the subsequent Tuesdays, January 10th work session in the morning, Board of Commissioners meeting at 1 p.m., and that is the day that we will hold our annual joint meeting of the Washington County Board of Commissioners and the County Fair Board. Tuesday, January 17th, work session 9 a.m. starts, board meeting at 10, reconvene work session later. Then on Friday, January 20th, we have the Housing Advisory Committee Housing Forum. That's a joint meeting between the Board of Commissioners and that Housing Committee. It starts at 9 a.m. And then the last Tuesday of the month, January 24th, we'll have our work session in the afternoon and board meeting in the evening. Are there any other board announcements for today? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn our business meeting of today?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries. We will adjourn this business meeting of today, December 6th, the year 2022. And as planned, we will convene for our work session at 1 p.m. if that holds for all commissioners, or do you need the full hour? How about 1:15? 1:15? Okay, we'll have our work session at 1:15. Thank you.